Ara whadau Karakia. Kia ora rā tātou. Kia hiri ake tātou I te atane. Kia tau ngā manakitanga te mea ngaro, ki runga ki tēnā ki tēnō tātou. Kia māhea te hua mā ki hiki, kia toi te kupu, toi te mana, toi te aroha. Kia tūturu, kia whakamaua kia tēnā, haumi e hui e, tāi ki e. A kei aku nui ki aku rahi, kei aku whakataitai ki te rangi tēnā rā koutou. Rarau mai ki tēnei wānanga ai pūrangi, a ki te tuitui ngā kōrero ki ngā whakaaro a tēnā. A ko te whakaaro nui, ki ngā mate huahua o te wā, rātou ko riro atu, ko huru whakairo atu, haere mai haere. Huru noa kia tātou ngā waihotanga, ngā kiko tēnā koutou, tēnā rā tātou. Thank you all for joining this morning on our online Wānanga, where we come together to share, connect, and weave our knowledge and perspectives. Before we begin, we acknowledge those who have passed and across the country. We honour their memory and their farewell them. And to all of us who remain living, welcome once, welcome back to those that have been on here before. I'd just like to share, I'm going to get Kelly to drop our tikanga. So if you just have a look at the screen, we're just going to share a bit of our tikanga. So you'll see the tikanga on screen before you. These principles guide the way that we engage with one another and how we conduct our kōrero throughout Practice Foundation's Wānanga. I'd like to invite you to take a moment, have a read of those, to reflect on what this means for you and consider how that might shape the way that we show up and we contribute to this time today. So we have mana whenua, acknowledging our relationships and responsibilities for whenua and honouring the role and leaderships of mana whenua. Mana mātauranga, honouring Indigenous knowledge. Mana tangata, upholding the mana of others by contributing to a respectful, safe and supportive space. Mana kaupapa, contributing in ways that uphold kaupapa rather than the personal gain, profit or commercialisation. So there we go, there's our tikanga, and that's been created and adapted by our mihi, by Angie, and Edwini and Ricky Lee. Ricky Lee's online if you want to give her a bit of a high five from the collab. So mihi ana kia rātou kua whakairi ake e nei kaupapa o te tikanga. So you're probably wondering who I am if you're those that are new. My name is Riri. I hail from Te Tai Kōrero. And yeah, so we've also just like to share that I'm your host for the Practice Foundations. Behind the scenes, we also have an amazing team helping run everything smoothly, which is Kelly and Lee, who will be supporting us throughout the session and every other session after this. We have Lee that's in the back, our tech guru that puts you all into the breakout groups. And if at any stage you experience any technical difficulties or need a hand with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to Kelly, which you'll see on the screen. We're also fortunate to have Jackie Chan with us, who'll be creating a live illustration of our kōrero as it unfolds and capturing our whakaaro, insights and connections from our session. At the end of today's session, though, she'll share a preview of her illustration with us, and the completed version will be made available in another 2 weeks' time. So, so there we go. That's our team. We've also got, I just want to give you a breakdown of our purpose for Practice Foundations, which is an online monthly community of practice for public sector teams doing ambitious and complex mahi, co-hosted by Auckland Co-Design Lab and us as Healthy Families Far North. In our session, we will share practical tools, insights and examples of how whānau-centred and mātauranga-led ways of working are making a real big difference within our whānau hapori across Aotearoa. We would like to acknowledge that this is a difficult time for many people, and would like to encourage and support everyone to take a good care of themselves and each other as much as you can. So we hope to find coming together is restorative. We have Kelly, who will share the questions when it comes to breakout groups. So feel if at any time, just reach out. As a reminder, just to remind you guys that this is a recording. This is a recorded session. However, the main room will be recorded for sharing online. We do not record the breakout groups. We do lightly edit. So if if you share something that you would not like to be included in the public, made it available for the public, please do reach out to Kelly and let her know that. Thank you. So we also want to let you know that we won't be allowing any AI bots like Read AI to attend these sessions. This is in order to keep the place safe online. Our purpose for today is today we have our rhythm of sharing with Sacha McMeeking to share insights from her soon to be released report, Whiria Ngā Ara. Whiria Ngā Ara provides a shared architecture for understanding how change happens. A suite of practical tools designed to help investors and practitioners make better decisions and more coherent ways of evidencing and communicating impact. In conversation with Rachael Cole, Sacha will help us explore what it means to move from funding individual initiatives to managing and connecting portfolio of activity, the capabilities and mindsets needed, and implications for commissioning. So, together, within the 90-minute session, we will have our whakawhanaunga where we break out into our breakout groups, and then we're going to have a kōrero from Sacha and Rachael. Have some more breakout groups at a later time this morning, and then we'll end up with a Wānanga kōrero where we get to share to and fro. So, for our whakawhanaunga breakout, we've got 10 minutes where we're going to introduce a question. So if you can, this is the question. So if there was a blank check of $10 million to spend in the community, as a raupu, I'm going to ask you, so when you go into your breakout groups, you're going to have a discussion about what you'll do for that $10 million within the community. But I want you to share back. So when you come back from your group, I want you to delegate one person that's going to bring back one of those initiatives as your group, and then you're going to jot it down in the chat forum. Again, so the partai is, if there was a blank check for $10 million to spend in the community, or your hapari, as a rōpū, decide what would you do. Ka pai? I hope you've all got the instructions. Go off and dream big for that $10 million. Kia ora koutou.
Oh, morena e te whānau. It is wonderful to be here with you today. And it is such a joy and delight to be here, to be in conversation with Sacha McMeeking. For those of you who attended the Practice Foundation that Sacha held last year in April, you will know exactly what you're in for in terms of sharing her wonderful mātauranga that she brings into this space, as well as I love her creativity in the way that she frames and presents stuff, and her energy and optimism that she brings in. So Sacha is an academic, a lawyer, an activist, a strategic consultant. She has been instrumental in synthesizing He Ara Waiora, which is a framework that helps Treasury understand Māori perspectives on wellbeing from discussions amongst many leaders across Aotearoa around Mātauranga Māori. She's going to be here with us today, sharing here Whiria Ngā Ara, which is a development from the conversation that we had last year. So it is really wonderful to have her back in this space where we can, both for those of you who weren't able to be here with us last time, get an overview, but we're going to be able to go even deeper into this wonderful stuff. So yeah, at this point, Sacha, I will hand over to you and can't wait to hear more about what you're going to be sharing today.
Tēnā koe te tohine. Kia koutou, nā mai ngā whakahi kua hara mai nei e pāna te kaupapa nei. E rere ana nā mihi matukui kia koutou. Ko waiau no Ngāi Tahu me Ngāti Mutunga hau. It's really lovely to be here with you all. I absolutely love the work that the lab does. And I can see from the names lots of people I would love to reach through the screen and give a big cuddle to. Things that you have dropped in the chat about potential investments are just beautiful. And I love that all of the answers that you've shared are right and they're worthy and they're important, which I think speaks to both the powers of social impact investment, the transformative potential that we can all be heartened and warmed by on cold days, like it has been in the beautiful South. But equally, it speaks to the complexity of what we're trying to do. And I think from the chat, that there's lots of different types of conversations that are present. Some people have focused on the type of intervention that you might want to grow, whether it's new, and a really heavy emphasis on whānau-led and hapore-led process-based ways of generating transformation. Some people are focused on domains. Some people are focused on an age and stage in the life course. And all of those ideas are right. One of the complexities I'm sure you will have experienced in the realms of what you do professionally is that those different entry points to what we should do create complexities for having structured, clear conversations. Because everyone is right. Thinking about types of interventions is valid. Thinking about potential domains and the balance across them is absolutely right. Focusing on life courses, evidentially valuable, but they are different things. And I think so often when we're talking about how to achieve the greatest transformation in the most meaningful way, we become trapped in these dialogical ambiguities because we are talking about different things. And so the rabbit hole I've been down for the last, I don't want to carbon date myself, but some period of time that might be double digits, is that to work our way across these different important good ideas, I think we need two things to have a stable language. One is, what is the type of causal claim that underpins how we are thinking about social impact being generated? What is the causal logic? And we're all really familiar with theories of change and intervention logics and the like. Quite often, they can leap over the assumptions about causal claim. And I think we need to bring the causal claim to the front so that we can then have a conversation about configuration. Because we know that all of the challenges that matter most to our whānau and communities are genuinely complex or wicked challenges. They have got multiple points of causation, and therefore we need packages of solution. The only place that silver bullets have a place is on werewolf movies. For everything else, we need packages of solutions, and we need to work out how to configure them. And if we are just talking to types of interventions, domains, and life course stages, we are making it difficult to configure causal claims. And so I've been thinking and doing lots of work with lots of powerful change agents in our communities to try and understand a way that we can frame causal claims to enable intentional configurations that achieve the greatest impact. And this thinking is traveling, but it's a long way from its destination. So I look forward to the opportunity to tease it out and kick it around and evolve it with all of you. The heart of this approach is thinking about the upstream, downstream continuum. We all think about this in our day job. I suspect that everyone on this call is intrinsically motivated to invest in upstream solutions. What is an upstream solution to one will be a downstream solution to another. And there are many ways of framing the relationship between what might be upstream or what might be downstream. They all exist within particular worldviews, within particular whakapapa of ideas. And Whiria Ngā Ara is a contribution into the way that we might see the upstream-downstream continuum. Its own whakapapa connects back to the work of the late and remarkable Professor Manu Kahinari in his work in the 1980s. And some of you might want to debate the terms. These are Papa Manuka's way of languaging this taxonomy. And so for all potential renaming options, I say it's above my pay grade. And we're using these ones because that's how he gifted it into this work. And he talked about kawa as the moral imperative, the paradigm that we bring to things. And when we look at social impact, what I think that gives us is a way of seeing the things that are most fundamental to how we set our own life trajectories, whether within whānau, hapori, or individually. Those things that enable us to define what we consider a good life to be. Those are the things that exist in this way of thinking at the most upstream point. And I think for broader ways of thinking about social impact, that is embedded within kaupapa Māori practice, but potentially rubs a little with the way that lots of ways of framing the upstream-downstream relationship might work. Commonly, we'd see those things that shape trajectories, the extent to which we have a cohesive identity, how we might feel a sense of responsibility that keeps us moving in a particular direction, meaning, purpose, and the like, as being the soft outcomes of other things. And one of the foundations of Whiria Ngā Ara is having done some crunching of whānau water evaluation work and finding an empirical basis that is sound, but it needs more work for those things which are most intrinsic to how we might chart our courses as being causal agents. And I think that's a really important starting point, rather than identity, belonging, responsibility being a product of other things. There's an empirical basis for saying that those things are causal and impact on how we encounter the other determinants downstream. At tikanga moving downstream, it's about systemic and material determinants, broadly in the kind of way we'd expect to see them framed within social determinants of health work. Retinga is about the behavioural components. Broadly, it's aligned to how we might think about behavioural change approaches, motivation, capability, and the like. And āhuatanga about the lived realities, those things that are observable. And the purpose of Whiria Ngā Ara is not just to say, conceptually, here's an ontological framework about how causation happens, which I think it's helpful to have those frameworks to say this is a way of understanding the upstream-downstream continuum, understanding how these whiri act as determinants of change. But to be useful, it needs to do a bit more. So what we've been doing with this is mapping the causal pathways and looking at the empirically substantiated, albeit in some places not as substantiated as they could or will be, the levers that contribute to those impact pathways. And I think when we think about how to configure the creation of social impact, being able to look at the pathways and the levers that contribute to change gives us a cross-cutting way of thinking about portfolio configuration of change. Because one of the challenges that comes to operationalizing social impact, I think, is that we get leakage between what we're doing at a macro, meso, and micro level. So we do lots of work at the micro level. We've got really considered thinking about theories of change, intervention logics, beautiful work, deep work, but that's often disconnected from a macro level understanding that has a shared causal architecture. So on the ground, what we believe and know and see to create change might have a really limited relationship with the types of strategic priorities that funders are saying they value. And often what we know, and this will feel familiar, I'm sure, to all of you, that at the micro level, there is a real focus on doing design that enables what might be wanted to be done in a way that engages at higher points upstream. Because we know that lots of our macro settings particularly prioritise investment in that āhuatanga downstream set of determinants. And what most of our practitioners are doing is carefully reverse engineering how to activate levers at points higher upstream, and are intentionally thinking about how do you configure the interrelationship between different levers and different determinants, but are forced to do that in the shadows because there's a mismatch between what is seen and valued at a macro level and what is known and valued and practiced at a micro level. And so we hope that one of the contributions of Whiria Ngā Ara is that it can provide a stable way of talking across all of those levels, so that it can intentionally contribute to how funders and decision makers are thinking about configuring their portfolio, so that their portfolio isn't based on we will split it across A, B, and C domains, or we will particularly prioritise one point in a life course journey, but it's looking in a cross-cutting way at what is the balance of upstream and downstream intervention across life course points, junctures, and or across domains, so that their way of thinking about that can align to what at the micro level we know to generate impact. And one of the other points that we are very much trying to contribute with Whiria Ngā Ara is that if we've got that stable ontology for how impact is generated, it enables us to have an aligned measurement system. So if we're looking at upstream causal steps, so there and some beautiful program or initiative or kaupapa that is enabling people to forge a more cohesive identity and sense of belonging that activates what we're calling a self-determination engine within te whānau or hapori, that has a causal pathway that we can look at, and the steps in that causal pathway can give us structure for how we might measure that. And how we might measure that, because it's got the stable ontology, can connect up into that macro level of what investors and decision makers are saying that they value. So that instead of that really familiar experience of the deepest, most transformative points of transformation being beautifully recorded in narrative that is very difficult for decision makers to work with, we've got a way of plugging in and seeing the evidential value of that narrative. And I think having that kind of stable ontology is really critical to enabling that join up. And Whiria Ngā Ara is not the only stable ontology, and decision makers and practitioners should very much be encouraged to have whichever ontology suits their practices and worldviews. But just having an ontology that enables that alignment across levels, I think, is really powerful. And at the meso level, the bit at which the macro and micro talk to each other or fall apart, I think there's a really important part about commissioning logics. How are we thinking and systematizing the act of commissioning that I want to come back to a little bit later. And the final point I want to make before pausing for a moment is that each of these components, the macro, meso, and micro, is being supported by a suite of tools. They look very tidy on the screen, but they're not quite tidy enough to be online yet, but they will be shortly. Where we've got a suite of tools that enable organisations to do some portfolio mapping, so to understand at that macro level how they are configuring their current investments against different determinants, so that whichever organisation, a government agency, a philanthropic, a small community organisation, can see their relative balance at different points of that upstream, downstream continuum. Because we've got the causal impact pathways, it can also show the balance between initiatives that are likely to have short-term confined impact as opposed to longer-term, potentially more transformative, but equally more emergent impact pathways, which I think is a really important contribution to being able to have open conversations about risk appetite. And like the conversation at the beginning said, quite clearly showed, we need everything. There is no wrong contribution to social transformation. There is just impact leakage from unintentional configuration of the balance of investments across a community, across a particular taki. We need all of the contributions. We just need a way to find them to harmonise better and to have intentional conversations about what the right balance of upstream, downstream might be in a particular context. And these tools are a work in progress. The way they're designed is they can be used for this portfolio mapping for a particular organisation, or they can be used within a particular ecosystem so that you can look across what other organisations might be doing and therefore have a clearer conversation about where there might be gaps or duplication and the like. So that kind of full system of a stable ontology with an empirically supported but not yet as robust as it needs to be way of understanding impact pathways is that, in our view, the architecture we need to provide these kind of tools out into the world. And I think there's an increasing kind of suite of these types of tools that are helping us try and do that intentional configuration to achieve the change that is why we're all here. We are all here because we believe in the ability to create flourishing futures. And what we hope is that Whiria Ngā Ara is a way for us to collectively make more intentional and joined up decisions about that. So with that introduction, I will stop and thank you for your time and pass over to Rachel with an ask on the side to Kelly to please stop the slide sharing. Thank you.
Ngā mihi, Sacha. That was just, I'm sitting here and I am brimming with so many ideas and so many partai off the back of that. I first of all just want to start by thanking you for acknowledging the creativity that our frontline practitioners have with the way that they work within the system. I think, you know, what you were speaking to there about how there's that recognition that those things that they're doing with people around that sense of belonging and their agency and their responsibility, like they know that that is the most meaningful change that they can have and the most meaningful work that they can do. And and they also know that it's so invisible and sort of unseen and unvalued in the way that they might have to report up into the system or write their service contracts, but that resilience and tenacity to always kind of keep focused on that. And I really appreciate how with Whiria Ngā Ara, it kind of names it all and you can see it within that. So yeah, I just wanted to mihi to you for that. The second thing that comes up for me that I again really appreciate, I think at the moment we're spending so much time in argument with each other, so much time in fighting our places and our corners, and so much energy going into stopping and starting and stopping and starting. And one of the things that I really value so much in what you're talking about in this portfolio approach is that it holds everything. We're not in an argument around saying, oh, we need to stop service navigation and, you know, what is the value of navigational services when we're just working within a broken system? We need to put more money into this space, you know, and so we can kind of drift away from some amazing stuff that we've set up to then kind of concentrate energy there. And then we go, oh, why are we spending so much time around supporting with Kai relief and blah, 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 blah. We should be doing more kind of upstream. And that change that happens, it takes a massive toll within the sector. Whereas this portfolio approach is saying, well, we need all of it, but it's the balance that is important. And one of the things that I was curious to hear your reflections on, Sacha's been an amazing hoa haere to us in the Tamariki Wellbeing team. We've just started a piece of work that we're doing alongside MSD and SIA, where we're trying to really understand what it would take to take a data-informed and community-led approach to investment around the first 2,000 days in place. And so we're working in Manirewa, and Sacha's been just wonderful and kind of opening our minds and encouraging us to be as expansive as possible. So I'd love to hear your reflections around what you think the opportunity is for this type of approach when you take a kind of a very place-based orientation to how you think about investment.
Ngā mihi, thank you. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to work alongside your team. And I think one of the things about Whiria Ngā Ara is that it's the product of generative conversations like the ones I'm able to have with you, and the work of an enormous number of change agents and pukenga Māori across the country. It might take a village to raise a baby, but this baby is the product of a village of hands and hearts, of whom you guys are very much valued ones. I think when you take this thinking into a place, it's got the potential to help see what's present or not present in a structured way, because the ability to map an ecosystem that can be according to a demographic cohort, or it could be about a particular domain of work, if it's health. Equally, it can be about all things occurring within a particular geographical community. And I personally think that looking within a geographical community, taking that place-based approach is one of the ways that it's got the potential to be most generative, because a financial literacy program might actually, well, not might actually, will quite commonly have lots of causal overlap with a program on a completely different kaupapa. The type of things at an upstream point that could happen through financial literacy experiences and wahakura, a program where expecting mamas can weave wahakura, they could be causally very similar if people through those experiences are restoring their self-narratives and therefore seeing their future selves in different ways, and or if that is an experience of a community forging experience. And I think that's really important, because what we know from all of the evidence is that to achieve transformative change, we need a balance of things that initiate or catalyze change and maintenance or scaffolding for change, particularly when it comes to trajectory shift. We've all seen it, we've all experienced it, we've been inspired to pursue a better version of ourselves, and then had a poor night's sleep and lapsed. And that reverberates in various forms, in various ways. That kind of pattern, we need maintenance and scaffolding. So a wahakura program might be a catalyst for some, and then sustaining the impact value of that needs either scaffolding to make it sticky, which might come from financial literacy. And so we're really used to sort of take-based referral systems. We're not used to exploring causally determinants of change driven networks of impact. And I think being able to work through that kind of network of impact, a place-based way of seeing the connection between weaving a wahakura and financial literacy, or whatever the 25 other beautiful things that might be happening in that community are, you can only see that in a place-based way. And yeah, so I think it's really valuable. And I think it also shifts the nature of the conversation, because when we're looking at the relationship between upstream and downstream determinants, there can only ever be shared responsibility for the presence of whatever phenomena might be happening within a community. And as we know, the deficit-based approach makes people feel like problems, which is a barrier to transformation. Being able to see multiple points of causation, multiple solutions, in itself, I think, can lead to different processual ways of unlocking trajectory shift. But that's possibly a rabbit hole, which I should stop going down for now.
Never a rabbit hole. But yes, we want to make sure that people have a chance to have a chat in the breakouts. But I'm so excited by that, because I think that's a really important thing that you've named, that when we look at collaboration that takes place in community with different parts of the system coming into contact, as you say, it is often based on assess whānau against deficits, refer based on acuity, those relationships, that framing, whereas this invites a totally different way of people coming in and understanding what their relationships are to each other and where they sit. And I can see that conversation, if we were to do something where we're trying to collaboratively map that investment locally, where do we think it's going, and what part of the system do we feel like we're most sitting in. I can just see that people would come into very different conversations with each other, which is, it's really exciting to think about. I guess kind of building off that, the partai that we would like you to talk about in your breakout groups is what would we need to start to shift to more this portfolio approach? And you can think about it in a place-based context or whatever makes most sense for you. And what are some of the first early steps that we could take to move into that? Now, I know we've got a number of people in the room here who are funders and commissioners. We've also got amazing practitioners on the front line working in communities. So we would love to hear your reflections from where you sit within the system. So just to repeat that again, and I'm sure somebody's put it in the chat, what do we need to start to shift towards a portfolio approach? And what's a first step that we could take? So we're going to give you about 10 minutes. I think there'll be a warning. Lee will pop into your breakout rooms and give you a heads up. Yeah, and then we'd love to hear your reflections when you come back, and we would love to continue this dialogue. I am not going to hog Sacha to myself. So if people come back from their breakout rooms and they have a question for her, please take this opportunity. Kia ora. Thanks, Callie. Yeah, well, people, please continue dropping your thoughts in the chat. Sacha and I would love to read those and any partai. But maybe while you're doing that, I just wanted to return to that conversation we were having around those, those kind of catalytic kind of impacts for whānau. And I know, Sacha, that you've been doing some thinking around how to reframe and sort of move away from this very kind of service model of seeing the world. I know we talk a lot about kind of moving beyond services and recognizing the importance of things of outside of services. But I think the thinking that you've been doing in this space is actually looking at this commissioning through services and saying, oh, there's another framing that we can put around this that will potentially better value the work that kaimahi are doing in community alongside whānau. And I'd love you to expand on that and share your thoughts with us.
Oh, thank you. I think this was very much triggered by the shift in the commissioning agencies for whānau water. And, there were lots of debates, obviously, about who had those responsibilities. And after spending a lot of time thinking about it, I don't think the real thing was about who had the power to do whānau water commissioning. I think that change was significant because what got done in the shadows was the rewriting of the logic behind how whānau water is commissioned. And I did not welcome the change in logic to the way whānau water is commissioned. And in that spirit, thought that we needed to find a way of languaging the different logics, because it doesn't matter who is making the commissioning decisions if they are applying a particular type of logic. So we made up some language, and that comment about getting Te Ao Māori to agree on a framework, absolutely. So every framework is wrong, but some of them are useful. Our goal is that we are less wrong and more useful, and the same kind of applies to this language. It's imperfect and it might not align, but I think it's a really important distinction. So we could say that most of the social sector commissioning applies a service logic, and logic in the sense of an institutional logic. What are the things that we believe to be true about a particular phenomena, and therefore what are the rules and systems and processes we build as a result of that way of thinking? And the service logic is the one that is so pervasive it's like the air we breathe. The logic is there are problems, we should find straight line solutions, and for most problems, an expert needs to be central to achieving some kind of positive outcome. And for some things, service logic is absolutely right and useful. I'm really grateful that the service logic applies to lots of the biomedical services that are around. It's necessary and important. Predominantly at the more downstream end, service logic is a really valuable contributor. What whānau ora was, though, was a fundamentally different logic that we talked about in lots of different ways, about outcomes and philosophies and values, and all of those are right, but as we know, they're somewhat incomprehensible and it's not incomprehensible, uneasily translatable to some sectors. And that to me is the activation logic. The logic within the whānau ora commissioning, as it was initially conceived, was not about an expert being central and direct lines from problem to solution. It was about activating agency, autonomy, self-determined, flourishing futures. And that, to me, that being able to name that institutional logic as a way of commissioning is a really important step to then being able to implement all of the other components of a commissioning system. And activation logic absolutely is necessary if we're going to try to activate any of the upstream causal determinants. We can only activate those upstream levers of change in a service logic if practitioners are doing it under the radar, unfunded and unvalued for what they're doing. If we want to intentionally activate those upstream causal mechanisms, then we need to apply this activation logic. And potentially, that means building a commissioning system that's got parallel allocations and processes for how commissioning is done. Service logic can be tenders and tight and prescriptive and all of those things we know. To do activation logic-based commissioning, it's a different how, who, when, why. And there has to be a kind of systems build with tagged money to it, arguably. So I hope that's a contribution to the way that we tend to talk past each other. So my grief at the change to whānau ora is that we silently went from a commissioning model based on activation logic to very much a service logic, and what is now commissioned by whānau ora with a very small allocation left for activation logic. So it doesn't matter who the decision maker is, they're confined in that way. And I will stop on that and really look forward to any other conversations. And Kelly, could you please bring that slide down?
I've just got one pātai, and sorry about not having no screen, I'll explain it later. I've just one pātai around how can we get people to bridge macro and micro. Sacha?
Thank you. That's a great question, and I think that commissioning logic is at the heart of it. And at the moment, we have lots of arm wrestles about who should make the decision without having that conversation about what are the logics that we are bringing to whomever has that seat. And so I think the logic is at the heart of it. So as we know, and there will be people here from SIA who are losing sleep over it, the community commissioning pathway, it's having local people make decisions is only going to be as impactful as we want it to be if those decision makers have space and autonomy to bring an activation logic to how they commission as well as a service logic. At the moment, being able to create that distinction and operationalize it is hard work because we don't have that precise language to describe what we're trying to do, and therefore how to embed it in systems. So I think shared language and precision in that is a really critical bridge between the macro and the micro.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for that, Sacha. Anything else that you'd like to add, Rach, in terms of that, or any quarter that has been shared?
I think that was a wonderful note for Sacha to end on, to acknowledge the importance of shared language. And I just wanted to thank her for all her work that she does in giving us this language to be able to talk with each other about that. I saw one of the comments come up from Amber acknowledging that as well. We can't have conversations with each other if we don't know how to talk to each other about things. So Sacha, just, ngā mihi nui for taking the time today, sharing your thoughts, and sharing this amazing work. And I believe that there's some more material coming out very shortly as well that kind of takes another even deeper dive again, and helping us maybe support putting some of this stuff into practice.
Yes, and plan A was for it to be available today, so we could go, ta-da! But we encountered technical difficulties too. So in the next week or so, depending on the technology gods, the tools and background information will be available, as well as a suite of very geeky academic publications on publication timeframes. So have a good nap, it could be 6 months.
Tēnā koutou. Well, tuatahi ake, just hei wāhi mihi ki tā tātou, wāhi kōrero, tuatahi, e mihi ana ki a koe, Ngāi Tahu, Ngāti Mutunga, tā tātou wāhi, tā tātou pukenga kōrero, pū kōrero, tēnei iau e mihi nei, Sacha, mo ko whai wāhi mai waingano i a mātou ki te whai kōrero ki e nei kōrero hoki. No reira, e kore arikarika e nei kupu mihi, e nei kupu rerehua, ki au taina ki runga i a koe. Just want to acknowledge you, Sacha, at the centre of Ngāi Tahu e Ngāti Mutunga. We just want to acknowledge you for all your work that you have shared with us this morning. And secondly, to you, Rachael, for allowing us to have you here to help facilitate and draw out the kōrero, all the gems that Sacha has to share with all of us this morning. So, e mihi ana kia kaurua tahi. I'm just going to turn my gaze actually, just to finish off again the beautiful conversations that we shared with us this morning. There's no one like you both to share this kōrero amongst us this morning. So, mihi ana. So again, just to close off, just want to give an opportunity for Jackie to share a quick snippet of what your live illustration looks like at this time. So just as Jackie sorts that out,
getting there. No more technical glitches today. It's very only half pie at the moment.
There we go, the beautiful illustration, the start of it, which will be 2 weeks' time. You'll see the finishing product of our illustration that's been shared amongst us this morning. So mihi nā kia koe, Jackie. Thank you very much for your pukenga e hoa. Just again, the illustration will be available in another 2 weeks' time for this month's session. On top of that, we just want to also, for those that are new at Practice Foundation and would like to receive email or invites to the sessions, please sign up via the Co-Design Labs website or by email to the lab. Just want to get you also excited for the next month's session, which is our Niho Taniwha Tracking Change. That'll be next month if everyone can join in to see and listen to all the kōrero and learnings that will be given next month's session. So, e mihi ana kia tātou katoa, ka whakakapi ake, I te wahanga kōrero. Sorry that you can't see me also. I've got technical difficulties with updating my laptop, and I couldn't leave you stranded with me away, so had to stay true to the kaupapa. But ka tuku atu te tahi wahi, wāhi Karakia. Ke hihiri ake tātou, ke whakairi a te tapu kia pātea I te ara, ke turu ki whakatahai, hau hui e taiki. Tēnā rā koutou.